Hello. Welcome to Liminal Writing, and we roll off on another season of our podcast. For those of you who just joined us, Liminal Writing is what Lee and I do, where we choose a trigger line or phrase and go into this 10-minute time writing, just
Yeah.
free flow. Then after that, we read it and share it with you and just ponder upon what we
Yeah.
had written.
So sometimes you'll find with our inspiration lines or our trigger lines is that it could be either something that is close to or talks about what that trigger line is, or totally be off tangent. It just depends on where we're at, the thoughts that we're having, and how it, clicks in for us.
Yeah.
So for
Okay.
this session, our episode one for this season is a line that I picked from this book.
Yes.
Clayoquot Sound is a place in British Columbia. I started reading this book a week ago,
So that's
and I
escape to Clay. How do you say it? Escape to
to
Clayoquot.
Clayoquot Sound.
Finding home in a wild place.
Yeah,
All right.
lots of good stories, pictures. So I thought, Sess, do we want to come up with something based from a line that I found there? So, Sess, do you want to read us the line that we chose for this one?
Now I want to speak about the elephant in the room. Lee had picked that up from page
Yeah.
185 from Escape to Clayoquot Sound by John Dowd. Is this it?
Right.
Here
You
goes.
go first.
Okay. Now I want to speak about the elephant in the room, the one that stomps all over our brains and hearts, leaving us babbling out words that circle about, that spiral and spin and leave us in a tangled mess of confusion and distrust. And there it is, distrust and the primal instinct for survival, which means the perceived need to compete for that very survival. That is the weight that bears upon us, even as the times ask for us to be in this together, to listen to each other, to truly embrace each other's truths and prop each other up towards achievement of our dreams. We engage with veiled distrust, invisible fangs, and soundless snarls. We are beasts, half conscious perhaps, of this primal instinct, and it hurts. It hurts us, it hurts the world, and we are the losers. Nobody wins. A bit dark. That's where it brought me.
Mm.
Uh, that's my mood for the time. Yeah, your turn.
Here's mine. Now I want to speak about the elephant in the room. Can the words be coaxed, slip past my throat and lips, hung in the air? No ears to capture the wrenching, twisting, dark swirls of a love gone awry. Once out, these words can never be corralled back into the enclave of my heart. That's it.
Oh my God, it brought you to a different place.
Uh-huh.
Wow. Wow.
Can you talk about where was your mind at when you
I want to
started
talk about
writing
yours more.
yours?
No, no, no. It's a whole state I'm in, and I think it's when you just feel that we should be allies in terms of
Mm,
resisting all the actors and actions going on around us that take away the gains of what we had fought for rights and just being more accepting of each other as a society.
mm,
There's a lot of forces that feel like they're prevailing in terms of dividing and causing division and wedging us apart as people. I just find too that it's my frustration coming out in the work that I do. I try to bring people together, and sometimes I just feel that what prevails is that whole need to kind of mm, survive in a way that we see each other as competitors in a smaller space in terms of both resources and for our voices to be heard. I think that's why I'm saying the elephant in the room is that we don't trust each other. We lose the ability to trust each other or hold on to the trust as the world seems to be against a lot of the things we fight for, or the resources are perceived to be getting tighter.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that it is, politically incorrect or incorrect to show that distrust. So it's veiled. So it's even harder in a way because it's not acknowledged.
Mm.
So that's why I'm saying we kind of babble around it. We beat around
Yeah.
the bush, and it's hard. It's hard.
I thought that was a really interesting turn of phrase that you put together. Veiled distrust.
It is veiled. That's what I meant. It is almost easier to deal with distrust that's openly shown than with
Mm.
one that is veiled. So there's a lot of gameplay. To me, is unnecessary.
But I understand that comes as par for the course when you're doing global work. There are many different stakeholders with different interests. Some may be butting against each other and not necessarily aligned. There's that space wherein you need to figure out how to do this work, but then because you're also protecting the interests of the community, then you can't
Yeah.
come out and say immediately. So it's
Yeah.
that that kind of like a
Mm, mm, mm,
zone
mm.
wherein you need to come and this is what my interest is,
Yeah.
but how do you say it in a way that doesn't seem like a challenge to the other?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's a bit doomy, but yeah, that's where I'm coming from right now.
Yeah, I mean, that is what is for us liminal writing is. It's in
Yes,
that space of uncertainty. It can be a space that is just
totally,
allowing us to entertain different
totally.
ways of looking at things. I think it's not definitive yet. It's not like
Yeah.
this is it.
For those of you who've listened to some of our podcasts in the past, you will see that there's been different tones. Sometimes it leads us to really fun spaces, sometimes it's quite
Yeah.
profound, sometimes it becomes quite sad or really deep in the sense that it goes back
Mhm.
into our past. This is what liminal writing offers in terms of the space,
Yeah.
allows us to be all these things. So you're over to you.
Mine is very personal. I am trying to say something to the other person, and I hope that the situation would be positive, but it doesn't necessarily end that way. I say that because from hindsight now, knowing what the end is, when I started writing about this, I was in the moment of trying to convey to the
Mhm.
other person
Wow.
what I was feeling. And then if it doesn't end that way, then it's kind of like a suspension, suspended in time of like
Mhm.
both in my mind and
Yeah.
then towards the latter part of the piece, you say, okay, that's how it's received. For me, the elephant in the room is the churning in my head
Yes.
before I
Yes.
release the word.
That's so interesting how we just landed in different place.
Mhm.
Well, sometimes when Dee and I write, we actually end up almost
Yeah,
in the same place.
space. Yeah,
This one is an example of how it brings you to different spaces.
yeah.
It's just a part of what makes this fun for us.
And just to bring the context from the inspired line from this
Yeah.
book, right?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
backstory of
What's
that
that? Yeah.
is that line of now I want to talk about
Yeah.
the elephant in the
What was
room.
the?
The author,
Yeah.
John, is a lifelong kayaker, environmentalist, and surfer. He was invited to speak in Japan to like a conference that involved being in the space with people who are in logging
Mhm.
and fishing, right?
Right.
So because most of his audience only spoke Japanese, he had a translator.
Right.
And so in English, he was trying to say the reasons why you're here, reasons why he was here and his interest in this space. Then he says, now I want to speak about the elephant
In the
in
room.
the room because it's really about what are corporations doing that is unhealthy for the planet. And so you learn as you read through the sections, one of the people in the audience who guess understood the
Yeah.
nuance of the language when you say,
Right,
and now I
right.
want to speak.
Yeah.
The audience member told John afterwards, like, okay, they didn't really address the elephant in the room the way that they translated it. But,
Right.
I guess because you're in a space wherein you're a visitor in the
Right.
country, and the host also knows that maybe the tone or the challenging tone in the message
Right.
might be received differently. That's
So it
how
wasn't translated like that.
it wasn't translated in the way that it would come out in
Yeah.
English. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was the feedback of the audience member
Right.
who
Right.
had a bit more
Yeah.
facility in the language. So when
Yeah.
she heard him say, now I want to speak about the elephant in the
So when you
room,
say
that
that line, actually, now I want to speak about the elephant in the room. If you were in a group saying that, it would cause some discomfort. There would be people
oh yeah.
will feel that bit of fear, I guess,
Yeah.
comfortable,
Oh
because
yeah.
in anticipation of whatever that might.
What's going to be said?
But there could also
Because
be some who would be relieved, right? Because they also want that to be spoken about. Anyway,
yeah.
just interesting. Thank you for joining us once again in another
And
session of Liminal Writing. And I hope it also inspires you to do some of your own writing. You can use some of the trigger lines that Lee and I use here. In this case, we used the line, now I want to speak about the elephant in the room. Maybe you can try that and see where it leads you.
all right. Bye now.
Time. Bye.